Joining me now with reaction, somebody who met with the president yesterday at the White House, the Republican governor from the great state of Wisconsin, Scott Walker. Maybe you won't call me a yellow journalist, immoral, and a liar, Governor. That'll go down as a Hannity classic.
I'll have a conversation with you.
What?
Well, we'll have a little Midwestern respect. We'll actually answer your questions and have a good conversation.
You know, the reality is the question I was trying to get out to Keith Ellison, if he actually wanted to hear it, is the debt now $16.5 trillion. We're talking about cutting $85 billion of $3.6 trillion. Is it immoral to borrow that much money from our kids?
Well, it's kind of like, you know, almost every day in our household, we get those credit cards that get mailed to us. You know, try this credit card, try that credit card. It'd be kind of like taking one of those credit cards, going on a $100,000 spending spree, and then handing the card off to your kid and telling him, here, you get to pay the bill. That's the problem. I think that's why most Americans assume when the president proposed the sequester back in 2011 and the Congress went along with it, the idea was we had to get serious about deficit reduction. We had to get serious about tackling the debt. And the theory was at that time, and it's coming true now, was that the cuts would be so bad, they'd be so arbitrary, as the president called them yesterday, that the president and the Congress would work some way to find out an alternative. Well, this is the moment that leaders are made for. This is the moment in which the president can stand up and say, if he doesn't like the arbitrary nature of these cuts, which I think a lot of people are concerned about, instead use his administration, offer a better, more viable, more reasonable alternative. But instead of that, unfortunately, he's going around scaring people into thinking the only way to get past this is to raise taxes yet again.
The president kicked the press out prior to meeting with all the governors yesterday. How did the discussion with the president go?
Well, you know, there's the normal beginning of kind of cordial things, but I and Bobby Jindal, Mike Pence, some others, I think asked some pretty straightforward questions. I said with absolute earnestness, I asked the president if he was concerned. The words he used when the press was there was that these were arbitrary cuts and that would be a great concern. And I think for governors, both Democrat and Republican governors alike, we are concerned about the arbitrary nature. But I said, most of us governors the last 2 years in nearly every state in America have had to balance our budgets. And most of us, some used tax increases, but most of us, at least the Republicans, were able to balance those budgets without raising taxes by taking control, by getting in charge of things, working with our administration, working with our cabinet, and finding a way to get it done. I suggest the president, maybe if he was concerned about the arbitrary cuts, the right thing to do was to use his administration to offer up better cuts, alternative cuts. And he's just not interested in it. He's changed the scope now. Instead of just being about deficit reduction through spending reductions, instead he wants tax increases as a part of that. And I think most Americans believe that there's still too much waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government that needs to be cut before anybody starts talking about tax increases.
All right, let's go to the president's been a demagogue. I mean, I'm listening to Congressman Ellison. He's bought into the demagoguery himself. He's regurgitating it. As you pointed out, this was what the president wanted. He requested the sequester. Now they've kicked the can down the road as far as they can. So the president goes out there today. This is how insane this choice has become of him. And it's very representative of a president that has gotten away with saying anything at will, anytime he wants. Now he's actually saying that this is a choice between disabled kids and poor kids being cut. Watch this from earlier today.
You know, the problem is when you're cutting $85 billion in 7 months, which represents over a 10% cut in the defense budget in 7 months, there's no smart way to do that. There's no smart way to do that. You don't want to have to choose between, let's see, do I close funding for the disabled kid or the poor kid? Do I close this Navy shipyard or some other one?
Do I cut the disabled kids or do I cut the poor kids? What do you make of the president's rhetoric?
Well, I think it's a moving target, and I think the American people just don't buy into it. They understand that they believe in every level of government, the local level, the state government, but particularly in our nation's federal government. They know, they see it all the time, that there's waste, fraud, and abuse all over the place, and they believe that a small portion of that is not a whole lot to ask the people in Washington, the president and the Congress, to get down, get to the table and find a way to get it done. And to me, this is just one of those rare moments in American history where it calls for leaders to stand up and get it done. And instead of demagogue, I mean, think about it. The president the other day released talking points. The White House released talking points state by state about the cuts that would be put in place to the press before they actually gave them to the governors. Every governor in America was invited to be there yesterday. We didn't see those. We had to learn about those first from the press before we saw them in detail. If you were serious about providing leadership to provide alternatives, you talk about that with the governors first before releasing it to the press. This is about talking points. This is about scaring people. This isn't about providing the leadership to actually get things under control. It's about trying to change the debate to put it on the backs of the American taxpayer. That hasn't worked before. It's not going to work now. We need leadership to step up and provide a better, positive alternative.
Governor, it's immoral to steal from our children. That's what we're doing. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Sean.